First up is Nick Farrell.
Dan, how are you?
Doing well, Nick. How are you?
Doing well myself. Before we go into the matchup itself, you kind of alluded to this after the game that your team that you're coaching has now made more history in a sense than the teams that you've played on. I guess I'm wondering, Coach, you've said a number of times that West Virginia is home. I want to know what you and your coaching staff are feeling about this run that you guys are making, knowing how much it means to you.
Yeah, proud. I think probably haven't allowed it to settle in or to sink in terms of what we've achieved up to this point, because we don't feel like we're done. We still feel like there's so much more to. What an incredible opportunity ahead on Saturday against Georgetown to make an even greater inroads into those history books and be the first team to make a Final Four. So yeah, it's the nature of this time of year that's as soon as you win one, you almost immediately look on to the next one. So that's what we've done here, and yeah, we took a brief moment to enjoy it and to acknowledge the accomplishment, but very, very quickly turned our attention to Georgetown.
Sam Caniglio.
Coach, just kind of going back to your playing days, Georgetown was a team that, they're still a Big East team. They're a team you used to play against every single season. What do you remember about those matchups, and how has that program changed in that time span?
I remember those matchups probably being a little bit easier than what we're going to face on Saturday, quite honestly. So yeah, somewhat familiar with the facility. I remember playing there. That's the last time that I've been there. But in terms of what Brian Weiss has done there as the head coach and how that program has evolved, obviously to the national champion in 2019, it is pretty spectacular. So they've shown incredible growth and have proven that they're a powerhouse, right? So I'm sure their objectives at the start of the season were to win it all and win an NCAA championship, and hopefully we're in a position now that we believe that we can do that too. I think the result against Tulsa and others this season continue to validate that we can compete with anyone in the country, and we certainly hope that Georgetown are no different in that regard.
Joe Mercado.
Dan, after the next semifinal, you guys had a little bit of a gap in the schedule. Was that time effective in kind of reassessing things that were working, things that weren't working, getting the guys refreshed? And do you feel that you're a better team coming off of that brief rest?
I think the margins are incredibly small. I think with respect to Georgia State, we didn't deserve to lose that game. We had some incredible chances that didn't quite fall our way. And it was a bit of a freak goal that they scored. So we tried to stay incredibly consistent, and with that approach was recognizing that we didn't do too much wrong to lose against Georgia State, but there are some small details, as there have been all season, that will be the difference. And I think because we have shown that we have the capacity to compete against some of the best teams in the country, yet at the same time not always get over the line against perhaps some of the smaller opponents that we've played or lesser opponents. And I'm not putting Georgia State in that category because they're an NCAA tournament team. It makes you stay humble. It reinforces that we're very much human as a group, and that we need to make sure that we take care of as many of the details as we can and give ourselves that platform to get the result and get the outcome we hope for. We've done that against Virginia Tech. We've done that against Tulsa now. So we've got to continue that aspect of how we've performed. And as I said, in both of those games, and we'll say, I'm sure, to the guys again, just leave Georgetown, leave Washington, D.C. this Saturday with no regrets as to what our effort was, what our application was, what your intent was in terms of the execution of what we're trying to do tactically. And there's a very, very good chance we'll leave there happy.
Nick, back to you.
Dan, these guys can really attack. What have you seen from them on the film? And can you use the match against Georgia State from the NCAA tournament to study up on these guys maybe a little better because you're also familiar with the way Georgia State plays, having played them twice in a short span?
Fun enough, Georgia State and the way that Georgia State play is somewhat similar to what Georgetown do. So defending a 4-4-2 and attack in a version of a 3-4-3 or building a 3. So there are aspects of how we've prepared for Georgia State that will likely translate to how we prepare for Georgetown as well. So I think the biggest thing with Georgetown ultimately is they're incredibly well organized, incredibly bought in and well drilled to what it is they do. They look like they're versatile enough to adjust how they defend based on what they see from their opponent. They don't always have to high press. They're sometimes quite content to sit in and let you have the ball. But either way, they're very, very well organized and very well structured and versatile tactically, which I think will be honestly quite a fun part of the process for me to prepare for them and a part of the game that I enjoy as well. So I'm looking forward to the tactical battle as much as I'm looking forward to the magnitude of the contest itself.
Sam?
Just kind of going off the magnitude of the contest, how does your mentality change when you get into the tournament this deep? I mean, it's not like a regular season game where you have a game on the other end of the triple whistle, but like you can't prepare the same way for an Elite Eight match than you can in the regular season, right?
Beg to differ a little bit. I think again, it's the consistency of the approach. As I alluded to when we kind of made that transition from regular season to postseason, if we were to change at this point, just because it might be our last game, would be short-sighted, would be to imply that what we did for the 18 games of the regular season wasn't enough or wasn't wasn't perhaps the right way to go about things. So we want to win those games just as we want to win on Saturday. The magnitude and the meaning and the implications of what happens if we win or lose is kind of the outcome, is surplus to what we'll actually do to prepare the players and prepare for the game and to build up to things tactically. The pressure they put on themselves is to an extent up to them. But as we've said, we can take a ton of confidence from the experiences already in this tournament, the way in which that we've gone through and advanced. I think it doesn't hurt that we've had a penalty shootout. It doesn't hurt that we've had a double overtime win. I'd love to end this one in regulation, obviously, but I think having some of those adversities and having the challenges and the quality of competition we've had, not just in the postseason but in the regular season as well, bodes well for us going into this game.
Nick?
Dan, pressing is something you guys have done with great success this year. Early in the season against Pitt, you did it well against Tulsa. It seems to be the thing that helps you guys break down these elite teams that you've played. So what goes into a good press and how do you make it happen?
First and foremost, the players have to believe that it's going to be worth their effort. So really breaking down tactically what we do to make sure that the players understand sometimes the simplicity of it, quite honestly, understand the potential benefits of it should we be successful, but recognizing that, listen, if we do it 5 times and it only works once, it was still worth doing it 5 times. It's a little bit like making a forward run with the potential of scoring. We might have to cross it 10 times before it actually falls to one of our players. So with the high press and with having that aspect of our game as an option at times, I think it can, I think it's continued to show, and certainly did in the first half against Tulsa as well, that when a team chooses to build and to play out from the back, we'll be prepared. We'll have a plan and we'll have a method that we hope is successful in countering that and giving us opportunities to have shorter distances to goal. And that's the biggest selling point, I think, is, listen, if you can win it within the first 2 or 3 passes, there's a very good chance that rather than us having to build and go 120 yards to get there, now we've only got 30 yards to go ourselves to potentially have a scoring opportunity.
So a follow-up to that, at risk of sounding like Ted Lasso, you talk about belief. Is believing the thing that this team does best? in a sense, believing that you guys belong here, proving it, and making a statement about what this program is?
I mean, I hope so. I hope so. I think at this point in the season, and I think, I acknowledged it early on with this group as well. Really early on, there was a clear indication to me that the players understood what we were looking to do tactically, how we execute tactically, whether it be in a high press or not, the system in general, functionality of how we play. We didn't change a great deal between the spring and the fall, other than some personnel. Those new players have come in and adapted quickly and acclimated to the style of play and the system of play that we have. But with a lot of returners from the spring that already knew what the system was, that process was relatively simple. So it's not about whether or not we're tactically organized, because I think that's been a really good aspect of our group and of our team. It's them believing that we can accomplish this, them believing that we can go to Georgetown and win, just as we did Tulsa. So I think in regards to that, the belief and the spirit of the group is in a fantastic place, as it should be right now. And I do believe that we'll think we can go there and we can conquer Georgetown on Saturday.
Joe?
Dan, you mentioned earlier about recalibrating the expectations for the season after the first couple matches and the results that you guys got. What would significance to you personally and to this program to get to the College Cup and to be able to play on that stage? What would that mean to you and the program?
Yeah, I defer. The only brief moment or brief conversation I shared with the players when we got together yesterday to train was, listen, the Elite Eight is cool, but I assure you the Final Four is even cooler. I've been very, very fortunate that I went to 5 Final Fours during my time with Charleston as an assistant coach or as a head coach, and there's something special about that whole week. There's something special about turning up at the hotel and knowing that you've arrived at the Final Four. The NCAA do a fantastic job of making sure that the student athletes feel special, feel appreciated, feel like this is a big deal, which it is. And it's an incredible experience, and one that I'll always want my student athletes to have as part of their memories of their time with the program. So that doesn't just apply to the players; it applies to the staff as well. It's a really, really special weekend, and yeah, I'd be thrilled. I'd be thrilled if we can get to that milestone, because as we've continued to prove, I think at that point, just as we're going into Saturday with a ton of belief, we'll believe if we can get there, then we'll believe that we can win it all for sure.
Wesley Shoemaker.
Coach, you're still relatively new here at West Virginia, and you've been able to get your program pretty deep in the NCAA tournament pretty early in your career. What does that say about your players, and what does that say about your staff that you've been able to make such a deep run and you're still relatively new on the scene at West Virginia soccer?
Yeah, news, a relative term based on my hire, but I'm not new to West Virginia University or to this program in that regard. So I think that was a huge advantage of mine when I got hired here to know, to have such intimate details of the program and the way it was operated previously, the potential of this program. And I've said it from day one, this can be a top 10 team and it needs to stay there. And for me, that's my perception of not success, but where this program should be as a bare minimum. No one puts more pressure on myself and what the objectives and outcomes of this program should be than I do in that regard. So yeah, not to say I'm relieved. I'm content with where we are, but it's what I expected and what my ambition was for this program. So, I'm not giving myself a pat on the back just yet, or feeling like we've done something amazing. We've done what I expected this program to be able to do. So from that regard, yeah, while it may have come a little bit quicker than we expected, that's a compliment, as you said, to the staff being brought into the progress that this program was looking to make, and to the players. There's been a lot of changes in the group since I arrived in that regard. Those that have been retained, if you like. Those that were with the program previously that are still with us have bought into those changes, and those that we've recruited, we've really made sure that when we've gone through that recruiting process, that from a cultural perspective, they're the right fit and they're the right type of players that we think, have the ambition to meet that of myself and this staff, which is obviously not just to be a top 10 program, but to compete for a national championship as well.